All right, Mr. Johnny Sirpilla, thank you so much for being with us today. I am so looking forward to our conversation.
Amber, thank you. I mean, it is truly a privilege to be here. And before we get started, maybe the most important thing I want to say today is to say thank you. I mean, you are a difference maker. The cultural playbook that you've developed, I think about the gifts that you're using that God gave you that truly drive change. And you're using the gifts that you have and you're sharing it. And I love seeing that. And we really need more of this in corporate America today. And I love seeing LCI at the forefront of doing this and talking about culture so boldly. And I'm honored to be part of the team and honored to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. And now you all know why I said I was so excited to talk to Johnny, because he gets this, and he lives and he breathes it every single day. And so it's thrilling when the two of us get together. I remember the first time we met, we were at a board dinner and we accidentally got sat next to each other. And I don't think we talked to anybody else the entire night because just the similarities, that exists, the passion for excellence, the discipline to do good, right? And organizationally, the belief that we can make entities, whether they're teams or businesses, organizations, families, a force for good, but that takes intentionality and it takes effort. And so that's what our conversation is going to center around today. Johnny, you have had so many amazing experiences in this world and have, spread yourself throughout so many different areas and different industries and different types of people along the way, that I'm just really looking forward to the value that you're going to add to all of our listeners. So welcome. And without further ado, so this doesn't turn into a 10-hour conversation, which it very easily could, let's dive in. So Johnny, you're sort of a legend in the RV industry in general, and a legacy, right? Because your dad back in the 60s was a part of it, and you sort of grew up in this space. Then you went on to be a high-level executive at Camping World and now serving on our board at LCI. So I would just love to hear from you from the sort of years and years of experiences. What have you seen in terms of the evolution of the RV industry? And then specifically, maybe where has it gone really well? And then where are maybe some of those areas that you see where we might get off track if certain elements aren't incorporated and embedded into how we operate?
Well, thank you, Amber. I'll tell you, I am blessed to have been born into the RV industry. My dad started in the 50s, actually, in the late 50s.
Decade off.
So yeah, even before I got here in 66. And so my dad was a pioneer in the industry along with his brother, my Uncle Art, and the two of them, saw a potential here coming from Italian immigrant parents. They love the idea of family, and the RV industry is certainly that. It's that opportunity to keep and bring families together. And so in the late 50s, when they were running a gas station, they ended up buying a tent camper and started renting it. And then within a few years, it turned into a full service RV dealership. And so we had that company. I was born into it, when the company was about 7, 8 years old. And then I was blessed after college and working some in Chicago to come back into the family business. And what I love about the RV space is what I've mentioned. It's all about family. I'm all about family. I don't know how to wake up every day without my focus on family. And I was blessed to be in an industry that keeps the family together. It is a place where people can, work hard to have their pastime and their enjoyment together as a family and creating memories. And it's an amazing industry to be part of.
That's awesome. And so again, you've seen a lot of businesses within the RV industry, right? You've seen small dealers, you've seen large publicly traded companies like Camping World and like LCI. Within those, what are some of the similar threads that you've seen of organizations and businesses, again, regardless of the size, that you think drives winning, right? At LCI, one of our core values is passionate about winning. And for us, that's the integration of our business and our cultural strategy. But from your experience, again, across all the landscapes and types and sizes of the businesses within the space, what are some of those threads that drive winning from your perspective?
So for me, I think driving winning is all about recognizing the space that you're in and understanding and being intentional. One of my favorite words from the last few years, I think, to really receive spotlight is intentionality and being intentional. I'd like to think that back in the late 80s, when I came back into the RV business, that I was intentional about recognizing what our industry does. And what it does is it is a very heavy weight, if you will, to take the leisure and pastime that people work so hard for in their family time and create the landscape for them to truly enjoy one another, enjoy their downtime and build relationships. And so for me, the RV industry, carries that weight. And so when you recognize that you're a service advisor in the industry, and it's your job to come to work every day to hear the complaints and the challenges that the RVer has, because they want this ultimate family experience and this connection with nature and connection with each other and connection with self. And we've got the responsibility to create the table to be set properly for that. And the quality of our work literally depends on people's hopes and dreams being fulfilled and where they're putting their recreational dollars. And so understanding that and feeling that weight is something that I think drives the winning culture. I was blessed, as I said, being raised in the RV business. I took over my family business, and we were small when I sold in 2003 at the beginning of the Camping World days. So I know the RV industry from an individual dealer perspective, a family business where I was blessed to have aunts and uncles and cousins work with me, and my older sister who is by my side always, and just an amazing family environment. But then, going into the Camping World days and understanding the weight that I felt as a leader in the Sirpilla RV days, and our company was probably about 44 years old when I sold it to Camping World and joined that team. And I really did that because I love team. And, your passion for football, you get that and you understand that I love being part of a team. And so for me, Camping World was that opportunity to make my imprint on the industry that my dad did in a way that he did as a, founding father of the dealership space and a creator of the Cleveland RV show and the association that created that. And so I look at this and say, as an industry, that I get it from a family perspective, and then I get it from corporate America perspective. As we worked for 15 years towards an IPO, it was an exciting time and an exciting journey. So I've seen the dealership business in through several different lenses, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. So in our cultural playbook, right, one of the things we talk about, and actually in our conversation a couple weeks ago with Coach Kelly, he brought this up too, of like, man, why do you do what you do? You have to know the answer to that question, right? And it needs to be compelling, because if it's not, guess what? It's too easy to show up mediocre. It's too easy to show up average. And the result of that in our business, in our industry, in the RV and marine space, right, is that when people go on vacation and they have that 1 week that they've worked for a whole year to take their family somewhere, if they've got average quality or something isn't going well, like that week of their life is potentially on the rocks, And so at LCI too, we talk a lot about the importance of our leadership and culture being grounded in science, and understanding some of the science behind this. And it's not this soft, fluffy, like, let's know why we're doing it, and be happy about it. But really the brain has both an emotional side and a logical side. And you can be logical all day long, but if you don't tap into that emotional side, you're not going to have the energy to persevere, right? The grit that's going to be needed to be successful, because as we well know, life is not easy. Business is not easy. And if there isn't clarity around why you do what you do so that you can have that intentionality toward it, it's too easy to quit, right? And then really nothing special ever gets built, whether that's a company or a family. And, Johnny, what I love most about you is that you understand that, not because everything's gone well in your life, but probably because you've been through really difficult times. You've seen difficult things from a business standpoint. And I know that, you know, in your family life as well. It's one of the most important parts. You've been married to your college sweetheart for 30 years, which I have questions about how to be awesome at marriage, so we'll get there. But your kids as well. You know, I see the three of them behind you, but I also know you have three more. And so maybe if you'd be willing to share a little bit of your personal life's journey to understand, you know, that life isn't always sunshine and roses, but how we think about and how we show up through those difficult times, I think is really where greatness can be made.
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity to share that, Amber. Thank you. You know, for me, growing up and getting married and being a dad and a good husband, I had the perfect role model in my parents, and I just wanted to do that. I wanted to get married young. I wanted to be married by 23. I wanted to be a dad by 25. And I was blessed in the last month of college to meet my life partner, my wife of now 30 years. And, you know, it was just everything going great. Life was just working. I was a little off schedule. We didn't get married till I was 24, but we were engaged at 23 after only knowing each other about 6 months. But, you know, we, you know, fell in love, and we knew that we had found the right partner. You know, I'd asked my parents over the years, you know, what were you doing letting me get engaged so quickly and so young? And I said, why didn't you stop me? And they said, there was nothing to stop. Susan was the right person, and they just jumped right behind it. And so, you know, life was going so well that I had the fear. I'm an anxious guy. I struggle with anxiety. I've always been a worrier. I was a worrier as a kid. I was a worrier in college. I was a planner. I had to, you know, have 15 job offers when I graduated college. I set that as a goal, and I had that, and I achieved that goal because I just felt like, you know, I needed to understand and have everything perfectly planned. You know, as God would have it, that wasn't in our plan. And so while careers were going great for my wife in the pharmaceutical industry and for me, my wife turned down a number of promotions for us to move down to Research Triangle Park in North Carolina as her career was going so well. But with the family business, I couldn't do that. But then as we started to plan a family, we ran into difficulties. Several years, 3 years of infertility. And that led to a pregnancy of triplets. And we were so excited and blessed. And it was always a dream of mine to be a dad to multiples. And I always thought about twins. I don't think my mind could go big enough to think about having triplets. And we had 2 sons and a daughter that were born prematurely. And unfortunately, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter passed away later on the night of their birth. And they forever changed our life, ultimately for the better. But it was a dark time. And, you know, we realized that it probably gave me my perspective, Amber, on business, on how to be a better dad, how to be a better husband, how to be a better friend, how to just be a better man in general, and to be compassionate and caring, because I never thought, why me? And Susan never thought, why her? That was never once, the day of the funeral, never even thinking that as we were heading to the church, because why not us? The world is filled with tragic stories and tough situations, and why wouldn't we have our own? And so when we did, I felt, you know, equipped from the baseline of saying, this is ours, and we can, and we will deal with this. But it was a dark time for sure. And I got to the point of realizing, and through a dear friend of mine and partner of mine today, Dr. Barb Fordyce, we spent a lot of time in counseling in those first couple of years. And, you know, she helped us get to a point of living without Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, and spending less time at the cemetery, and where we just physically went to be near them and to be close to them and to feel like we could parent, because now we're still back to being infertile and having those challenges again. And so, you know, there was great blessings. You know, the line between joy and sorrow is fine, right? There is a fine line there, and there's so much emotion that's tied to it that I wanted to come out stronger and better and recognize this partner that God created for me, and Susan is so amazing. And I looked at the strength that she had, and I wanted to give everything to her. And so we got through it together, and we found a way to keep Nicholas, Mary, and Peter in our lives, not close that chapter, but just rewrite that chapter and what it's like to parent children in heaven and to celebrate their lives. And we do that, on their birthday every year, and with a tradition that our oldest son started with. He wanted them to come to his third birthday party, and so begged us that they can come from heaven. And when we couldn't make that happen, he asked if he could send his balloons to them. And so every year on their birthday, we do that. And so still today with our kids at 20, 22, and 24, we end up celebrating them wherever we are, and we're FaceTiming together so we can all send our balloons up.
Johnny, that's powerful, and I think that, I want to start with that because it contextualizes leaders, and one of the things that we talk about is the importance of, vulnerability. And I'm not a fan of that word in and of itself. But when you understand what the definition of vulnerability is, it's courage in light of pain, right? And there is no courage without vulnerability. And so as leaders, I think sometimes we might be afraid to share some of those sides of ourselves, but I think a lot of times people can look at a life like yours, right, and think, oh, wow, yeah, he's got it all together. He's, been given all this stuff. Maybe he's worked hard, but who knows? It's probably been an easy road. And the reality of it is we all have our challenges and we all have those things before us. And as leaders, if we're willing to share some of that with the people around us, it really helps us understand that we're all on this journey of life together. And in the season of life that we're in right now, you happen to be listening to this podcast in the fall of 2020, where we're amid a global pandemic, right? Within the US, we've got many social justice conversations that are needing to be had. Now more than ever, we need humanity, right? We need to be able to see each other for who, we've been created to be, which is men and women and humans in this world that are all experiencing our own journey, and I think that lays a foundation that where trust can be established, where relationship can get formed, and in leadership, that's critical. And I think that a lot of times people think like, if something goes wrong, then it's wrong. And I love what I heard you say is when something went wrong, of course it did. I mean, because it's life. And then so mentally, I think as leaders and as people in this world, if we can understand like, hey, things are going to go wrong, right? I had a sports psychologist for a baseball team tell me one time, listen, we never welcome the error, right? But we welcome the error that the opportunity presents us. And seeing how you as a family stepped into that, I'm curious how you found that sort of extrapolate into your life as a leader in your business life. What was maybe one lesson that you took from that you feel like has helped make you a better leader throughout your life?
So many lessons. Clearly the thought that we need to reframe our thoughts, or the principle, I should say, that we need to reframe our thoughts for good, because as somebody with anxiety, I have a lot of thoughts in my head, right? I worry about everything. I worried about who my kids would marry when they were born, and I'd have conversations with my wife that we need to pray that their spouses are being born into loving homes, and they'll know how to love and respect our children. And she was saying, Johnny, we need to pray about that now. I said, absolutely, changing a diaper, we need to worry about this, right? And so that's the way my mind works. And so for me, it is a reframing thoughts constantly. And Nicholas, Mary, and Peter helped me do that, to be better for Susan, to be better for Bo, Bella, and Stone. I have to say that as a little shout out to the concept of adoption, I'm a huge fan of adoption. Our oldest son is adopted. And, I do tell my kids that one of them is adopted. I don't remember which one, but we have a file that says who is adopted. So I think I've checked that file and it was Bo. But, Bo came after a twin miscarriage after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died. And he was born almost 9 months to the day that they died. And he was that bright light that changed things for us. And so I had to reframe my thoughts again, because I was feeling guilt of being happy and moving forward. And, reframing that thought of, for us, the issue of biology was never that important, but I never grew up saying I can't wait to get married and adopt a baby. But it became our life. So I had to reframe our thoughts around that and realize that my thoughts around it were very different than other people's thoughts around it, where it wasn't a backup plan, if you will, although technically, it was what we turned to, but it was just us being open to what God had in store for us. And Bo has always known, and Bella and Stone, which were two surprise pregnancies that came within 19 months after Bo was born, that it was God's plan to bring us together as a family that way. And so for us, we have to be open to reframing our thoughts, because society looked at adoption maybe differently than I did. For me, it was just receiving the child that God meant us to have, but maybe society wasn't where I was. So I had to work my thoughts around that. And you take that, Amber, into the class, or into the classroom of work. I think our workplace is our adult classroom.
Yeah.
Right? We're continually learning. We need to be on a continuance of education. We're created to be lifelong learners, and that process doesn't stop when we start working. Matter of fact, I think that process really engages us. Our formal education, when I went to undergrad and when I went to grad school, high school, that was teaching me, I think, how to learn for life, and the life learning continues. And so as leaders, we have to recognize that, we need our American workforce to be open to search for peace. Peace from within, peace in our homes, peace in our business. And when there is that passion for peace, I think kindness naturally follows. And as leaders, we have to create the setting for that peace and learning and kindness to foster and grow, because everyone has their life situations. Johnny and Susan Sirpilla were not unique, maybe a little unique in losing 3 children at once, but not unique in life tragedy, right? We all experience and have it touch us in some way. And if you're blessed to go through life without it, there's life learning that happens in that as well. And hopefully there's other ways that you develop compassion and care for others. But as leaders, we have to recognize that our challenges are also our team members' challenges. And I saw that back in the Sirpilla RV days, that I had this awesome responsibility to employ 75 to 80 people before I was honored to lead a team of 10,000 and be part of that leadership team at Camping World. We owe them the environment of continuing education. And we need to recognize, and my goal was always, even back in the Sirpilla days, to recognize that our employees, my goal is to send them home to their most important job of father, brother, sister, mother, granddaughter, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, whatever your purpose and real role is in life, that you go home to be the best at that. And our work environment has to set them up for that. And if it doesn't, if it detracts from them and weakens them, then we are part of that dysfunctional cycle of not finding peace and not creating an atmosphere for kindness. Because literally we foster a negative environment at work, and you go home and there's negativity. I always say, maybe it's the Italian in me, that, there's blood on your hands in that we're a part of that. And I couldn't accept that. So, our life situations have to flow into a work setting that we can make a difference in, and be a bright light to others.
Man, I love that, Johnny. That's so powerful, right? And so I'm curious, I've never asked you this question, but I'm curious, like, hearing you talk and how you're saying these things, and then knowing how we operate at LCI, like, I'm curious, what attracted you to be a part of our board, right? Because we're blessed to have your vision and your leadership on our board, but ultimately, I mean, you have a choice of the boards on which you serve. So I'm curious, what attracted you to become a part of our family in that regard?
It's clearly from Jason. Jason Lippert is a special leader for sure. And Jason and I connected professionally, is how we met. I had heard about Jason for a number of years before we actually met. And I was told that, people would say, oh, either you look like Jason, you sound like Jason, you talk like Jason, you behave like Jason. And, you guys know each other? And, I said, no, we don't. And I had a need at the Camping World business that I wanted to get into the furniture business of selling product that was originally put in the RVs and manufactured for RVs and move away from the manufacturer that we had. And so I reached out to Jason, and that conversation, I understand why we have similar souls, and that we both went to Miami University. And so we didn't know that when we got on the call with each other. Find out we went to the same school, found out that we were in the same fraternity. We were both SAEs at Miami. Found out we were both presidents of our fraternity at Miami, and the only difference was about 6 years in between us. And so he started right after I left. And so it was Jason that brought me to the company, and knowing where his heart is, knowing where he has incredible fiscal responsibility, but above that, it doesn't come at the cost of anybody. It is fiscal responsibility with corporate responsibility and personal responsibility. And, even the company being unique, Amber, to have you here with your PhD and your skill sets, it is what's making the difference. When you look at the retention issues in the RV industry, and, I don't think that you could really be committed in this space to make those difference for those family members, right? To produce a refrigerator that's working, that doesn't go bad when the family loads it with their groceries the night before they leave for vacation, and they wake up the next morning and their groceries are all bad, and they don't have the money to go ahead and buy new groceries. I've been there at the service counter when that family has showed up on their way out from vacation, right? And seeing the tears in the mom and dad's eyes, the kids' eyes, and the heartache. I've been part of paying for those groceries to make it right for them. And, you can't play a role in the industry, I think, without understanding the impact that your products have on people's lives at critical times. And Jason gets that. And that's why he has the improved retention that we have at LCI. It's phenomenal. And I don't think you can be in this space with retention issues north of 30%, being sub 30, allowing even ideally to be sub 20, but allowing for natural attrition of people, with retirement and moving and those type of things. But you need that stable workforce. And I know that LCI, through the program that you're leading up, is making that difference and really a leader in the industry on retention.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey to see where we've been. And what I love most about it is that it is a journey. And when you hear Jason talk about it, he overtly says listen, I wasn't always this way, right? Lippert didn't always think this way. And back to our initial conversation of everything's not perfect and you don't have to be. And to recognize, we weren't perfect 10 years ago, and we certainly aren't perfect today, but allowing people to grow and evolve, for organizations to grow and evolve, for epiphanies to happen, right? For change of heart and change of momentum and pivot. And I think that, that's important in all of our industry, that we all continue to grow and to evolve and to appreciate and to let each other grow and get better and evolve through that process as well. And I respect that a lot about him as a leader, where he'll say listen, we didn't treat people well. That wasn't our mindset. It was about the number. And then all of a sudden we realized, wow, we have a greater responsibility. Business can be a force for good in the world if we're intentional of leaders of creating that environment, right? Which is what you talked about earlier as well. So I was just curious how all of that unfolded, and it's cool to hear those stories. You two certainly are similar, and it's just invigorating, to be with and around people who have that same thought. In a conversation that you and I had before, I heard you say the phrase, what corporate America needs to be. And I'm just curious, how would you define that? I mean, more broadly speaking, we've talked a lot about the RV industry and a little bit about LCI, but more broadly speaking, what is your thought and perspective around what corporate America or what business in America needs to be?
We need to be the force for change because, as I said, we're that classroom, we're the adult classroom. And At LCI, we're not there yet, and we're never going to be there. We will never get there and say, we did it. We're there. The culture is perfect, because it's dynamic. It's changing. It's organic, right? It's going to keep evolving and changing. And each time we fail as a leader, whether it's a director, a manager, a VP, a president, whoever it might be, every time that we fail in a action, not in a role, but just in a singular action, we have an opportunity for improvement. And we all fail, and our goal is to all fail forward, right? So we're never there. I think that for companies to recognize the journey that we're on, we've never evolved fully as a human, as a man or as a woman. We've never fully gotten to that point where we say, I made it. You know, I retired, I thought I retired when I was 50. And I was blessed that our IPO at Camping World was on my 50th birthday. And, you know, God just had it on my heart that it was time to go. And I thought it was time to go because it was a Friday night and my son was a high school quarterback, and it was Friday Night Lights. And turned out it was a bigger message for me. And so I followed that. And to where I was going, I didn't know. But I knew, as to answer your question with corporate America, that we always need to be evolving in the role that we need to play. I knew that I needed to do that as well. And my dad got sick in his 50s, and I thought, he got sick with cancer, and I thought, you know, I don't know what my 50s are going to be like. And I know that there's so much more that I want to do. And so while it was scary to leave an industry that I knew so well, I knew it inside and out, but it had prepared me for that journey of evolving and living and growing. And so, you know, maybe one of my motivations at 36 years old to sell my family business and not walk away from business at that time, but to just find something new. And I think that, and I was blessed to do that. And I loved the experience at Camping World, and to be able to lead at that scale and to be part of such an exciting roll-up that I think has been so good for the industry. And there's a lot of talk and discussion around that, but industries evolve and change. And I liked, you know, being on the front end of that. So I think for corporate America, what we have to do is always assess where we are socially, culturally, from a peace perspective. You know, I use the term, you know, peace often because we're all searching for peace within. Again, as somebody that has anxious thoughts and tends to worry a lot about a lot of different things and a lot of different people, I don't really want to get rid of my anxiety. I've grown to live with it and like it because I think it makes me thoughtful. It makes me intentional on the words I use, on the impressions I leave with people. And I think that's where we start failing corporately, is when we aren't worried about how we're impacting other people. When we are so focused on our own goal, and if that's merely a financial goal, you know, we're destined for trouble because we're going to fail a lot of people along the way. And not that profit is bad and finances are bad, absolutely not. So much could be done with wealth and corporate stability, and it's necessary for the employees to have a financially strong company, right? For the team members to feel that they're part of something that is intentional and looking forward and down the road, and it will always be there. That's a gift. That's a great thing for an employee to have and not have to worry about if their paycheck is going to clear. So from a corporate perspective, we need to be uncomfortable with the challenges that we face every day. And I say be uncomfortable because as soon as we get comfortable, right, we start resting on laurels, we start taking advantage. And I think, you know, living in that uncomfortable state of worrying about other people, that is uncomfortable, but it consumes my thoughts and has led me so much into the space that I am today, so much in healthcare and in medicine and trying to make an impact in people's lives and in managing thoughts. I do a lot of public speaking about that because I know how hard it is for me. And corporately, America needs to recognize, corporate America needs to accept that they are the adult classroom. And that is forming the next generation, because the team members that we have in those classrooms at work go home and teach. And we have to, you know, be very thoughtful of the subject matter that we give them to teach. Are we going to teach them that management can't be trusted? Are we going to teach them that it's, corporate greed? Or are we going to teach them that it's, look out for yourself only, because if you don't, no one else will? Those are lessons that are passed on to the next generation.
Wow, that's powerful. And I think such a great thing for us all to be mindful of. It was interesting in 2019, the Business Roundtable, which is a collective group of CEOs, signed like the purpose of a corporation. And so, decades ago, that they said that the same group, right, stated that the purpose of a corporation is to increase shareholder wealth. And so we all learned that in business school, right? The purpose of a publicly traded company is to increase shareholder wealth, and you do what you can to do that. And so in 2019, they actually got back together and restated the purpose of a company, an organization. And what they said is the responsibility and the purpose of an organization should be to increase all of stakeholder wealth, whether that's the employees, the community, yes, the actual shareholders. And so, I love that holistic perspective, and at the highest levels in our country, right, for the U.S. economy, that those are the conversations that are being had. But then it's our responsibility, right, as the businesses out in American economy, to be following that and to trying to bring into pragmatic reality what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. So, we're coming up on time, Johnny, and so I want to put two things together and have you talk about that, because I think they're really critical. Is one, you have an LLC called Encourage. I'd love to hear a little bit about just your heart behind that and what you do. But simultaneously, I know that one of the things that you love talking about is this idea of personal branding. And for all of our leaders and listeners out there in general, I think that's a really critical topic that if you could just touch on, briefly in terms of like, what is personal branding and why is that important? I know that that's entwined a little bit in your work through Encourage. So maybe just give us your thoughts on that space before we sign off with your high performance leadership training you're going to give us all.
All right, Amber, I'll do that. So Encourage was founded on the principle, again, when I decided to retire from the RV industry and potentially, just reevaluate what I want to do in the last portion of my life, kind of in the second half, although it was probably far beyond that. Encourage was founded on the principle, it's biblical, from Thessalonians, verse 5, chapter 11. So encourage one another and lift each other up, just as you were already doing. And I thought about that, and I thought, I do try to lift other people up, and that I do want to encourage people. And so that was the genesis of Encourage. And at Encourage, I focus on healthy living. So there's a number of investments that are in the healthcare space that I'm just so passionate about and honored to work with just dedicated professionals in the healthcare space that are truly making a change in redefining and defining how well are we. And so doing that from an insurance perspective, from a medical care and practitioner perspective, and serving on a number of boards in that space. I also focus on Encourage leadership. And so that's consulting and discussion around just like this, with great people like you who have a heart for it and want to go out there and make a difference. So Encourage leadership is very important to me, and I love public speaking. I love the opportunity to engage with audiences, especially at the collegiate level. That's a passion of mine. We also have Encourage Investments, and that is just a variety of investments that I've made and managed. So what Encourage really is a small family office of my own investments in a variety of fields that all really want to drive change in a variety of industries, and equity investments that can really drive meaningful change. And then, of course, I have Encourage Adoption. So any chance I have to have a stage to talk about adoption, to work with pregnancy support centers, to change hearts as it relates to deciding to parent or not, and realizing that first parenting decision comes with recognizing that now might not be the right time to be a mom. And so to place that baby for adoption and to understand the lives that can be changed for the better. That's the birth mother, that's the baby, and that's the family that gets blessed when somebody recognizes now is not their time to raise a child. It's their time to mother. And that first decision is to place that baby for adoption and to give it the loving and caring environment that that baby deserves. And so, you know, those are my 4 principles of encourage. And it really follows into, you know, the brand, right? The personal brand. You know, I'm a huge fan of John Maxwell's work. I always like to say that because I feel like so many times I say things, you know, he's the world's most published author on the topic of leadership. And, you know, I'm a collection of so many people's thoughts that have influenced me. And so, you know, I don't know how authentic some of my thoughts are, but I know they're in my heart, but they've been put there by other people. And John Maxwell is certainly one of them. But, you know, he talks about the principle that the hardest person to lead is yourself. And boy, I buy that, because there's a lot that goes on up in this head of mine, and that I have to kind of sort through and fight through to get to why I feel unrest or why I'm not at peace on a topic. And it's usually because something's stirring in me that I have to change within myself, that I need to rise up and to be better, that I can't let people down. And so that is what brand development's all about, right? Is understanding who you are. What is it that your brand is going to deliver uniquely, or maybe if it's not unique, but authentically to the world. And so before any of us need to worry about, and this is, I guess, a message that I would leave you with, is before any of us need to worry about leading others, we need to take care of home base and lead ourselves. We need to get our house in order so that we bring our best self, and our self that's seeking peace, seeking to understand, and wanting to learn from others. Not always teach others, right? Because we're all in this classroom together in life, and this journey is ongoing. So our personal brand needs to be known and identified so that we can put ourselves in a position to best serve others. And I think ultimately, when you're serving others and when you're being mindful of others, your career path goes up. When you are that team member that is looking out for your peers, you shine differently than those that are so obvious that are trying to get ahead of their peers. And yes, we all want to get ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making more money and good money and a corporation making money. We all have that fiscal responsibility to our companies, to our families, to ourselves. That is all good. It just doesn't come at the cost of others. And I think so many people feel that they need to build their career on the cost of others. And that is when they fall short. It's transparent. And I would tell you that the marketplace today is too intelligent and too wise through programs that you're doing and leading, that it's visible and it's transparent, and they're not going to get ahead admirably.
And that's powerful. I just love that topic of personal brand. I'm even just thinking about now, man, that'd be a fun session to do with my teams of what is your personal brand, right? I mean, write down when somebody says your name, what are the words that you want to come to mind? What are the traits or characteristics that you want people to think of when your name is said? Because the reality of it is people think something, right? And
That's
like,
right.
I always say, like, never leave excellence to chance. And so, like, they're going to think something. And so how can we, back to the word that we started this conversation around, be intentional about building the brand so that when they say Johnny Sirpilla or Amber Selking, like, things come to mind that we would be proud of, right? That actually matter to us, both here and for eternity, you know? And I think that those are the questions that we need to wrestle with. And as leaders, that's a powerful place to start. So we're at our time, Johnny, and it has just been a sincere honor and privilege and blessing to chat with you today and to hear your wisdom and your heart. And I would just love now, as our final sign off, if you could leave myself and our listeners with some high performance leadership training that can allow them to continue to grow as an individual and a leader, to be that force for good that we talk a lot about. What would you tell us?
I would tell you, again, it's a John Maxwell principle. Subscribe to the concept of servant leadership. Have a desire to serve other people. Serve people always. And that means serving as a leader, the example that you want others to be. Know your heart and know the dark sides of your heart, right? Know that the sides of you that just have to improve, and get uncomfortable with that, of knowing that side of your heart that you're feeling selfish. Acknowledge it. Understand why you're feeling selfish. Examine your thoughts so that you can really serve others genuinely and serve them well. And I think that any time that you want to sign up for the title of a leader, I want to be a manager, I want to be a director, I want to be whatever that VP, the president, whatever that is, you acknowledge that with that comes the responsibility to serve. And if you're not serving people, I don't believe that you're leading them. And so for me, I ask you to check your heart. And as I do every day, and there's days that I'm off target and I say, Johnny, you've got to do better. God gave you skills to do better. God gave you a heart to want to do better. And even if you see somebody that doesn't have that heart for it, you know, challenge them, ask them, help me understand what's going on, seek to understand. And when you do that, you know, I watch people, I work with my mom and my sister and my niece in another family business, and I see their hearts are so good in the interior design space, and they want to create homes for families to just fall in love and be happy and joyful, but their hearts are there. And so I'm going to leave you with the thought of having your heart in the right place to be that servant leader.
Powerful. Johnny, thank you so much for your time. Pleasure being with you as always. Looking forward to the next dinner that we can solve world problems and create some more greatness. So thanks for your time.
I can't wait. Thank you, Amber. Thanks for all you're doing for LCI. And for any listener out there, you're making a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.